Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Which one of the following statements best describes Bond Challenge? It is a global goal to bring 150 million hectares of degraded and deforested landscapes into restoration by 2020 and 350 million hectares by 2030. The objective is to protect human health and environment against the adverse effects of hazardous waste. It is a global treaty to protect human health and the environment from persistent organic pollutants. It aims to combat illicit wildlife trafficking by stimulating political will, improving law enforcement, reducing consumer demand. Which of the statements best describes about Bond Challenge? The answer to this is A. It is a global goal to bring about 150 million hectares of degraded and deforested landscape into restoration by 2020 and 350 million hectares by the year 2030. Why have we taken this practice question? Because the PIB article makes a mention of desertification and land degradation. So the Bond Challenge objective is to fight against land degradation. The first important question is we have to understand what is the difference between land degradation and desertification. When it comes to land degradation, there are two viewpoints to it. One, it is a combination or it involves both degradation of the soil and the degradation of the vegetation. What is the difference between them? When it comes to degradation of the soil, what happens? The physical, the chemical and the biological characteristics of the soil is further degraded with time. So this soil which might have been fertile, but over a period of time it has become sterile and is not giving the output as it originally gave when it comes to that particular region. Added to it, it also involves vegetation degradation as well, where the number of species in that particular area has considerably decreased over a period of time. So when it comes to land degradation, it is a combination. It involves both soil degradation and vegetation degradation. But when it comes to desertification, desertification is a type of land degradation in which relatively dry area of the land increasingly starts becoming arid over a period of time. All the water bodies in that particular area will start loosening it out and ultimately it may result in desertification. So desertification is a form of land degradation that happens in a particular region. So this Bonn Convention basically is about fighting the menace of land degradation. When you look into the global statistics, there are about 3.2 billion people who would suffer if there is land degradation across the global community. Why? Because many people live on the land, which means to say their entire livelihood is based on land. If this land is degraded, it means that about 3 billion people will suffer, about 40% of the world population may suffer, and ultimately restoring the degraded and deforested lands is an objective of the Bonn Convention. So the Bonn Challenge will address the issue of economic security, water security, food security and climate change by working on landscape restoration. Now if we go back to the question, the second statement says the objective is to protect human health and the environment against the adverse effects of hazardous waste. This is basically speaking about the Basel Convention. When you look into the third statement, it says it is a global treaty to protect human health and the environment from persistent organic pollutants. This is speaking about the Stockholm Convention. And the final option speaks about the Coalition Against Wildlife Trafficking. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following are related to development of education in India? Fowler Committee, Hartong Committee, MacDonald Commission, Sadler Commission, Uch Dispatch. Which of them are related to education? The answer to this is 2, 4 and 5, which includes Hartong Committee, Sadler Commission and Uch Dispatch. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference to education during the British period. So when you go back to the options, you have the Fowler Committee, which is one of the committees appointed by the British government back in the year 1898. What does this committee do? This committee back then examined the currency situation in India. The McDonnell Commission, once again, is not related to education, but this was a commission which was appointed to deal with famine relief. The other three committees and the commissions, which included the Hathong Committee, the Sadler Commission, and the Uts Dispatch, were basically dealing with the development of education in India. So it would be 2, 4, and 5 only. Now let's look into the next practice question. A wetland can be considered internationally important if it meets which of the following criterion or criteria: contains a representative, rare, or unique example of a natural or near natural wetland type found within the appropriate biogeographic region, if it supports vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered species or threatened ecological communities, if it supports plant or animal species at a critical stage in their life cycles, or provides refuge during adverse conditions, if it regularly supports 20,000 or more water birds. Which of these statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference to the wetlands in this article. The article makes a mention of Deepor Bill. This happens to be a wetland in the state of Assam, and it is currently under the Ramsar Convention of Wetlands. We did discuss recently in our quiz as well what is this Ramsar Convention. But in this Ramsar Convention, for a wetland to be recognized, it has to meet one of the criteria as mentioned here. There are about 9 criteria. If these wetlands meet any one of the criteria, such can be declared as a wetland. So what is a wetland and what is the criteria? Let's discuss them. It contains a representative, rare, or unique example of a natural or near natural wetland type found within the appropriate biogeographic region, which means that particular wetland should be unique in that particular area. Kindly remember this word unique. If it is unique, then such a wetland can fall under the wetland under Ramsar Convention. If it supports vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered species or threatened ecological communities, if any of these species are present in that wetland, it can fall under the Ramsar Convention. If it supports populations of plant or animal species important for maintaining biological diversity of a particular biogeographic region. If it supports plant or animal species at a critical stage in their life cycles or provides refuge during the adverse condition. One such example can be the olive ridleys. When it comes to the olive ridleys, what do? They come to the coast of Odisha, and there they nest and they eventually lay their eggs as well. So the critical stage here speaks about the olive ridleys coming from a different region, from an oceanic condition, coming down to Odisha during the critical stage where it is laying its eggs. That is what is the fourth criteria. Fifth, it says if it regularly supports 20,000 or more water birds, if it regularly supports 1% of the individuals in a population of one species or subspecies of the water bird, if it supports a significant proportion of indigenous fish subspecies or families, life history stages, species interactions, or populations that are representative of wetland benefits or values and thereby contributes to global biological diversity. So the point to remember is about indigenous fish subspecies. If it is an important source of food for fishes, spawning ground, nursery, or migration on which fish stocks either within the wetland or elsewhere depend, if it regularly supports 1% of the individuals in a population of one species or subspecies of wetland dependent non-avian animal species. So what are the criteria? One, it speaks about the bird. Next, it speaks about the fishes. It speaks about any other species apart from the birds. And if they are meeting these criteria, this can come under wetlands of international importance and can be put as part of the Ramsar Convention. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements about Miyazaki mangoes. They are grown primarily in South Korea. These mangoes are rich in antioxidant and contain beta carotene and folic acid, which is great for people that need help with tired eyes. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why? That is because they are primarily grown not in South Korea but instead it is in Japan. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference in the Hindustan Times article. These mangoes are grown in Miyazaki city, which happens to be one of the city in Japan, and the name is derived from this particular city, which is why they are called as Miyazaki mangoes. These mangoes are over 350 grams in weight and have about 15% or higher sugar content as well. What is the unique attribute of this particular mango? This particular mango costs about 2.7 lakh for 1 kg of a mango. In the international market, if you have to buy this particular mango, 1 kg of this particular mango costs about 2.70 lakh per kilogram in the international market. Why is it so? That is because the mangoes are rich in antioxidant, they contain beta carotene, and they also contain folic acid, which is great for the people that need help with the tired eyes, which is why it costs exorbitant in the international market. So this Miyazaki mango is as shown in the picture. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following is geographically closest to Great Nicobar? Is it Sumatra, Borneo, Java, or Sri Lanka? The answer to this is Sumatra. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2017. When you look into the map, what we have is the Andaman Islands, followed by the Car Nicobar. Then we have the Nicobar Islands. A part of it is the Great Nicobar. This Great Nicobar is close by to Sumatra. This was a previous year question which was asked in 2017. So it becomes very important for you to know such map based questions as well. Now let's look into the next practice question. The next practice question is a clarification from our yesterday's daily quiz. The first question was, which of the following statements are incorrect? Since it asked for the incorrect statement, the answer would be A, 1 only, and not 2, 3 and 4. 2, 3 and 4 are correct. Since the question is asking for the incorrect, the answer should have been 1. By mistake, we did say that the answer is D, 2, 3 and 4. But do remember, for this particular question, A, which is 1 only, is the right answer. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center. What is this? This is an initiative of the Ministry of Home Affairs. For what? To combat cybercrime in the country in a coordinated, in an effective manner, so that we are able to curb the menace of cyber frauds that are taking place in India. So primarily, it has objectives of bringing a check of cyber frauds committed by people in India. It will identify research problems, needs of the law enforcement agencies, and takes up the R&D activities in developing new technologies and forensic tools in collaboration with academia and research institutions within India and abroad. So what will it do? It will conduct research developmental activities in case of any technological upgradations that is required. It is this center which will enhance the upgradation to prevent the misuse of cyberspace for furthering the cause of extremist or terrorist group. We are living in a digital era where there might be extremist group which might use the internet technology to breed hatred amongst communities. So this particular center will keep a constant vigilant eyes on such terrorist organizations to suggest amendments if required in cyber laws to keep pace with fast changing technologies and international cooperation. What we need is a constant change when it comes to the cyber laws. There might be new loopholes, there might be new viruses, there might be new worms, or there might even be cyber warfare as well. In such a situation, what we require is a constant upgradation of laws. So this particular center will look at all the cyber laws that are in India and constantly engage with it and say the government if there is any updation that is required to coordinate all activities related to implementation of mutual legal assistance treaties with other countries related to cyber crimes in consultation with the concerned nodal authority in the Home Ministry. So what will it do? It will also coordinate with other countries who are part of the mutual legal assistance treaty so that we can bring an end to the menace of the cyber crimes or the cyber frauds. So exchange of information between other countries and the Ministry of Home Affairs takes under this Cyber Coordination Center. The components of Indian Cyber Coordination Center include Cyber Threat Analysis Unit, National Cybercrime Reporting, Platform for Joint Cybercrime Investigating Team, National Cybercrime Forensic Laboratory, National Cybercrime Training Center, Cybercrime Ecosystem Management Unit, National Cybercrime Research and Innovation Center. What is this article speaking about? According to this article, the Ministry of Home Affairs has come up with a helpline number. What is this helpline number? It is 155260. In case there is a person who has faced a cyber fraud, what does this person do? He immediately will have to call up this particular number. So this will prevent any of the financial loss due to the cyber fraud. What will happen? The minute this particular person dials this number, the police officers of a particular state will immediately respond. They will raise a ticket with respect to this particular incident. They'll speak to the caller, get the basic information about the transaction and the personal details of the caller, and immediately raise a request with the bank. So we have the banking channel which is immediately asked to keep a check of this banking transaction. So what would happen in case the bank has not released the fund? It will immediately freeze this particular fund. If the person has actually pushed from one bank into another, this bank, the host bank, will speak to another bank and immediately ask another bank to stop this particular transaction. So what will happen here? The banks will coordinate with each other until the money is saved from reaching the hands of the fraudsters. So kindly remember, it is 155260, which is the helpline number to prevent all types of cyber fraud. It is this that we have to understand in reference to the fact of the day. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.